Hi everyone, Guy and Penny from Midwinter Minis here. In this video, we're going to show you how to create colourful, complementary bases for your Blackstone Fortress models really quickly.
When we first got Blackstone Fortress and got a good look at the game tiles, we were both quite surprised that the style of the bases on the official paint schemes didn't really match the tiles at all.
Well, it isn't unheard of for Games Workshop miniatures to not match the game tiles. Do you remember how that misaligned kill team terrain and boards set off your OCD?
Oh my god! Why did they not make them line up? It's so easy to have done that.
While the official guide for the bases looks great out of context, I think, we felt it didn't really match the tiles enough, and also it needs you to be able to freehand very straight lines, which isn't easy for beginners. So for the first step in this video, I'm going to use a cheap little comb that I got from a Christmas cracker. You can pick these up super cheap almost everywhere, and they're really helpful for creating straight parallel lines like you see on all the tiles. So the first thing to do is sacrifice your comb to the hobby gods and snip it up into sections. Try to snip 2, 3 and 4 tooth intervals on the comb so you have a variety of sizes to use. Now if you're young and maybe aren't used to snippers, be careful not to cut your fingers off.
And if you do, it's not our fault. While you're watching Guy fire off bits of comb, just a quick shout out to Ryan, Sebastian and Terry for throwing some cash at our Midwinter Minis tip jar. Thanks guys, we really appreciate it.
Next you'll want to decide what colours you're using. This isn't really set in stone, but we would recommend using complementary colours to the miniatures you're basing. A good way of figuring this out, especially for colourblind people like me, is by looking at a colour wheel. And see what colour your miniatures mostly are, move around the wheel either way by 1/3 and you'll find a great complementary colour. Models with a lot of reds, tans and browns like my beastmen can be complemented by blues and purples. Models with turquoise like these ghouls can be complemented by oranges and reds. Whatever colours you choose for your model, you'll always need white for this tutorial too.
In terms of paint preparation, this tutorial is really easy as all the paints are thinned in the same way. Take 1 drop of paint and thin it with 4 drops of water to get the right transparent consistency.
So once you've done that with the white, sweep one of your new comb brushes through the white paint, and then swipe it in one direction across the base of the model. When you can, try to paint away from the model out towards the edge of the base. Turn the model and do the same thing from a different angle, and this should create diamond shapes. And then turn and do it again to create triangular shapes on the bases. I know this looks really terrible right now, but stick with me.
Yeah, you know, I thought at this stage they looked pretty rubbish actually, but you can barely see these lines in the end, so it doesn't matter if the pattern at the moment doesn't look that great. While you're watching Guy make shonky patterns, just a quick thank you to Tim and Jostein for your donations since last week. Thanks so much guys.
Once you've got all the models you'd like to base painted with these white patterns, we're ready to start adding some colour. First, I'm going to add some red paint to the ghouls' bases. Remember that all the paints in this episode are thinned with 4 drops of water for every drop of paint. Now dab it on with your standard brush in random spots on the base. Cover most of it, but not the whole thing. I want to add a bit of yellow to these bases too, so while the paint is still wet, I'll add random spots of yellow too. As both of the paints are so diluted, they'll naturally flow into each other and mix. For the beastmen, I did the same thing but with blue and purple paint. Be careful not to paint any of the rocky elements that you've already painted on the bases. Lots of donations to our tip jar since last week, so while you're watching me paint this blue and purple, a huge thanks to Mark, Florian and Kieran for supporting the channel. Thank you all so much.
I think a lot of people really like the amble video.
Yeah, that's what I gave up my weekend for.
Once you've added your first layer of colours, leave your models to dry. As the paint is quite diluted, it'll probably take around 20 or 30 minutes to be fully dry. If you're doing all your bases in one big batch, by the time you finish the last one, the first one will probably be ready to go again.
And when they're fully dry, basically do the same thing again and add your thin paint to make the colours richer. This time though, while the paint is still wet, we're going to use our detail brush to just tap a couple of spots on the bases with thinned white paint. As soon as you do this, the paint will be drawn out in weird forks and blooms and will look really cool when it dries.
Again, just leave the bases to dry fully before you go to the next step. This time we're going to use our black paint to add some detail to repaint the rims, and also add some angles and details to the bases. This is the only time we're not thinning the paint in a 4:1 ratio with water. This time you just want to thin your black paint to a nice normal painting consistency with a tiny drip of water. So Guy didn't have to touch the models while he painted the rims, he stuck them on top of paint pots using blue tack. Very technical. Once they're secured, angle your brush upwards and paint the rims to get them nice and black again.
Unbelievably, time for some more shoutouts, this time to Andreas and Bastian. Thank you so much for your donation, guys. You are awesome. Now swap to your detail brush, and using the black paint, choose random sections created by the shapes we painted with the comb at the start, and block them in using the black. Try to focus only on 1 or 2 edges of the bases, and not the whole thing, and try to keep it a bit random too. Also, while we've got the black paint out, you can use your detail brush to paint the recesses around any straight basing elements you added. You don't have to do this though, but it certainly helps to find the shapes.
Once you're done with the black, you're done with the bases. As you can see, they really suit the style and tone of the Blackstone Fortress tiles, and they're really easy to do. Outside of drying time, each base only takes a couple of minutes to paint.
In the next episode of the series, we'll be taking on the heroes, starting with the super sneaky Eldar Ranger Amelin Shadow Guide. And yes, that's the new turntable. It's pretty cool, right? We've been putting everything on it. Whee!
Woo!
Oh! Aha!
Where's my pig? That's gross.
A huge thanks again to all our awesome donors like Yonghuan, Mario, and Chris. Aside from this awesome turntable, your tips have also let me buy a mains-powered battery for my camera, so I don't have to hot swap dying batteries every 10 minutes. And thanks to Morgan for recommending that battery. Oh my word, it saved my life.
Thanks so much, everyone. Hope you all enjoyed the video. Catch you next time.
Bye for now.